Hello, this is Cheryl Willis over at eXp coming at you with the November 2025 monthly market update. Everybody wants to know what's going on with the prices. Are they going up? Are they going down? Or is it somewhere in between? Well, it's kind of somewhere in between. Let's break it down. Let's talk about where the big deals are to be found. New construction is where the biggest wins are. If you are already considering making the commute out to the newer communities, or new communities, I should say, on the outskirts of the Phoenix Valley, then you should really be giving us a call to have a conversation to see what those monthly payments really look like. Here's the thing, guys. I know everybody is waiting for the prices to come down when it's really the interest rates that are affecting home buyers more than the pricing today. I'm not saying prices aren't out of control. The one good thing, though, the builders aren't doing is slamming down those prices, because if that was the case, that would be an indication of what we saw in like 2008, like desperate, trying to get rid of inventory, like the world is coming to an end. That's not what our market is today. The prices are actually sustaining at a reasonable level. Now, I realize resale sellers might disagree because it's very hard to compete with new construction. They thought their property values were worth higher, and maybe at once upon a time it was, but now that they're competing with new construction, they have to be competitive. So back to why new construction is the win. New construction, although prices aren't coming down as low as you probably wanted, they are competing in the interest rate area that can make these home prices, mortgage payments more affordable. It's not just about price, it's about interest rate. And here's the thing, when you buy a car, the salespeople will talk to you about the monthly payment. Rarely do they talk about the purchase price. Today's real estate world is truly about your monthly payment. You want it to be more affordable. We don't want to be house poor like you are in most of the coastal cities. People that are relocating here, our prices are still very attractive. It's for the locals that are having the most challenges. If this sounds like you, if you're thinking about new construction, actually at any price though, because all builders, we've been able to get something. Let me tell you, we've been able to get some of even the lower price builders up to almost $70,000 in incentives. I'm not just talking about buying down the rate and closing costs. I'm talking about appliances, upgraded appliances, refrigerator, washer, dryer. I'm talking about window coverings, backyard improvements. I'm telling you, we have a great relationship with almost every single builder across the valley. You just got to give us a call. But new construction is definitely where the biggest wins are. So if you want to compare what that monthly payment would look like in a new construction based on the interest rate that we can get you, you got to give us a call. All right, let's talk about resale, which is the vast majority of what you're going to be reading about from your news media, Yahoo Finance, from Redfin, Zillow, and all the other YouTubers, because they only have information on resale. They don't have, if they're not actually going into the builder sites, they have no idea what's going on until it closes. And on public record, it's not reflected. The details aren't there. So this is why, again, watching my channel, watching my videos, I will give you the data directly from our MLS and new construction. So it's pretty good. You got to get all the information here. Here's the thing, guys. Resale, we did see an influx of inventory. We saw a lot of people that were thinking that 2025 was going to be the year. But here's the thing. We started off with really high interest rates. We were in the high sixes at that point. And I know it doesn't seem like we're that far off, but for a monthly payment, even a 0.5% can be rather significant. We just talked about that, right? So when we saw the huge inventory at the beginning of the year, we were like, well, we hopefully have enough buyers to come in and absorb these rates. And it was moderate. It was moderate to okay as far as the buyer activity. But here's the thing. These sellers were very unrealistic as to what a buyer would be willing to pay for their home. We saw more new listings, absolutely. But we also saw more cancellations and more expireds. That means that sellers just wanted to try for 3 months, and then if it didn't work, they came off the market. So we're going to just call those delistings, okay? We saw more delistings ever in the entire time we've been tracking data, which is over 25 years from our MLS. It's a very different world today. And buyers, it's affordability. So the only way that sellers really can compete in resale is they still have to be realistic on their price. The condition is super important. And I have to tell you, the inventory that is out there right now is so much better than it was even at the beginning of the year, which is so weird. Usually the best inventory is the spring. I saw a lot of junkety junk in the beginning of the year. Right now, there's a lot of nice homes on the market. These are serious buyers. Now, usually we see at least one or a couple of price reductions, and the list price to sales price ratio have still stayed in the high 90s. Price reductions, though, do not necessarily reflect what's happening with the values. Let me show you 5 amazing deals that this is where realistic sellers, great condition homes, they came down on their prices. They tested the market at a little higher. Every seller does this. Let's do it a little bit higher because then they can come in lower. It doesn't really work in this kind of a market. And they were very generous in their seller concessions. And this is what makes a difference for the buyers today is the seller concessions in resale as well. This is what the new construction, this is what the builders are doing. There are sellers out there willing to do this as well. You just got to give us a call so we can run numbers. It's all about monthly payments. Let's take a look at these 5 wins for last month. This beautiful Mesa home was originally listed at $875,000. This was a serious seller, even though he was priced a little bit high. They eventually wound up closing at $825,000 with $26,000 towards closing costs. Scottsdale, this one originally came on the market at 1.1, closed at $920,000 with $27,000 towards closing costs. This beautiful home in Peoria started at $725,000, eventually closing at $680,000 with $30,000 towards closing costs. We have this gorgeous, beautiful 1-acre home in Buckeye, originally listed at $2.2 million. They took a whopping $200,000 off. They closed at $2 million, and they kicked in $25,000 towards closing costs. And Sun City, originally listed at $425,000, they closed at $399,500 with $25,000 towards closing costs. Let me tell you guys, it's not just about the purchase price. It's about all the details, the terms and conditions, and it's about who's negotiating for you. We'd love to hear from you, even if you're just thinking about buying in 2026. Interest rates. What's going on and where is it going and how do I think it's going to affect our market? Well, first of all, let me just refresh you that if we go back to the winter of 21, so 4 years ago, right now, interest rates were in the low 3s, high 2s. And we started the year hitting 3s. And I remember everybody like, oh my gosh, 3%, you better hurry up. Yeah, well, by May of 2022, they hit 7%. And that's when the market went, and we've been dealing with it since. They said it was only going to be for about 2 years until they corrected the inflation. But, things like that don't happen that fast. I know 2 years doesn't seem fast, but here we are 3.5 years later, and we still have, well, they are lower than they were a year ago. And that's my point. That a year ago today, or right around this month, they were at 7%. That is one ugly number. That number works in Las Vegas. It does not work in interest rates. And so the fact that we are literally 3/4 of a point lower than we were a year ago, it makes it more, at least a better buyer environment. It's not ideal. But this will impact, in my belief, I believe we're going to have a better buyer season coming in the first quarter. So Our light switch is literally like the first week, second week of January. We will see approximately 10,000 new listings in the month of January. That's super normal. But again, what happened last year is we had all those new listings with these inflated prices. And then buyers were a year by January 13th, they were at 7.26%. That's a scary number. I don't care how much money you make. That is not a fun number for a 30-year mortgage. So again, we had normal new inventory levels. We had fewer buyers because of the higher interest rate. And so going into the beginning of next year, what do I think? Well, I think it's going to be a busier buyer season. I think we're going to see a lot more contracts. Hopefully, that's all I can say. Hopefully, more realistic sellers. And I think that maybe a year from now, I know that's just dreadful, but we have a lot of things that are going to happen next year, and just nothing happens overnight. We have the mortgage, sorry, the feds are going to be the job. Let's go to the jobs report. The jobs report sucked because the government was closed, and then what they got in, they can't trust it. We knew that that was going to go kind of sideways. I don't think the feds are going to reduce I don't think they're going to do another 30 basis points. Um, in December. Once upon a time, they thought that we might see that happen. But again, let me point out the feds reducing the basis points does not correlate with the mortgage rates. But in anticipation of that happening, typically we see the interest rates go down. In fact, again, going back to this chart, you can see this happened twice, both in September and in October. And as soon as the feds lowered their rates went back up. So again, I know it's kind of wonky and hard to explain, but I'm not expecting that in November. Well, we're almost over. And December, I don't think that's going to happen either. It might happen in the first quarter of the year. I'm not sure, but that would be, again, my trigger recommendation. When you start hearing about the feds possibly lowering their rate, that's when interest rates are going to go down. Like you don't have time. And that's why I tell people if you're thinking about buying in 2026, give us a call today so that we can set you up for success because this will happen a couple more times next year. Powell's going to be leaving his position in the May timeframe. New appointee, but again, nothing's going to happen in the summertime. I'm going to say maybe September, October of next year with a little bit of luck, we'll see interest rates in the high fives. But as I pointed out, with the concessions that we have, both in resale and new construction, you can get those rates today. If we see a busier buyer season in the January through April timeframe, which is our peak season, we will start to see some prices or values go up. So if you can get those lower interest rates today, wouldn't that make more sense? You need to give us a call. It's a little bit more of a strategic plan these days. Now, if you're relocating, it's a totally different story. Obviously, that timeline is more than picking the right season or waiting for the right interest rate. Just give us a call, no matter when you're thinking of buying in 2026, and we will help you put that plan together. Is it a buyer's market or is it a seller's market or is it on the cusp of changing from wherever it is today? That is the question. And it really is from a larger, greater Phoenix area, it's a buyer's market. But when you drill down into the respective areas, it's going to be very different. And it changes seasonally. Here in Arizona, we have a lot of tourism, and we are just starting to see massive snowbird visits. And with that comes a lot of buyers that are looking for those second homes and vacation homes and luxury homes. So when we peel that onion apart, we start looking at all the different markets. So seller markets are going to be in the luxury areas, Fountain Hills, Paradise Valley, Chandler, Scottsdale, Gilbert, and Cave Creek all remain sellers markets. What does that mean? It means that there's still some negotiations, as I pointed out in the Scottsdale one, but it doesn't mean that every home has the same opportunity. Luxury has been very strong, and it's been really, it doesn't follow interest rates the same way. The median, lower priced homes do. Luxury has everything to do with corporate returns. It has to do with Wall Street, and a lot of other variables. We still have great weather. We still have the best inventory we've had in a long time. So again, luxury continues to be strong. Now, the balanced markets are going to be kind of that middle price point. So I'm going to say somewhere between $400,000 and $600,000. Those are going to be areas like Avondale, Mesa, Phoenix, Tempe, and Glendale. Most of these are those core cities. And I mentioned this last month that these remain to be a strong market, even in a buyer's market. Again, the greater Phoenix area as a total is a buyer's market, but these core areas that have a ton of freeway access, medical care, also we have employment, job corridors, and again, that's what keeps these areas always in strong demand. Again, that's Avondale, Mesa, Phoenix, Tempe, and Glendale. Now, the buyer markets, you can really you can tell right off the bat, these are all the areas where there's new construction. And again, that's what I talked about in the very beginning of this video. These are all going to be places like Peoria, Goodyear, Santan Valley, Surprise, Queen Creek, Buckeye, Maricopa. There is even more. The adult community areas like Sun Lakes and Sun City and Gold Canyon, even though that's not an adult community, and it has a very high average age for the residents. All of these areas are in buyer markets right now because the majority of those homeowners aren't here. Watch what happens in January. That's all I got to say. It's going to change in those 55 plus communities. That is the peak buyer season for 55 plus buyers. So let me tell you guys, overall, it's a great time to buy, even in these seller markets. These are not extreme seller numbers. So even when a home, let's just say in Scottsdale, is listed, as I showed you, at 1.1 million, there is still some negotiation in that one particular home sold at over what, almost $200,000 below the list price. Every single property is an individual case by case basis. It has everything to do with what the motivation is of that seller. Here's where you really need a strong team that's available 24/7, days, nights, weekends, and holidays, and has the negotiation power and volume, experience, and skill sets and knowledge of the entire greater Phoenix area. If you are thinking of moving to the greater Phoenix area and you do not live here, I promise you it's very different working with relocation team and our expertise. Give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email. Days, nights, or weekends, we got your back when moving to Phoenix, Arizona, and I cannot wait to hear from you.